What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Yeah, big old shop building we've been working on, and today we're gonna get going on this front end. But what that means is we've got to work on getting these doors trimmed out. I've got to put the last post right here and probably frame this walk door, maybe even install it. But stay with us. We're gonna start wrapping up the exterior of this building, so if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hope you enjoy it. We got Greg up here. He's working on the header on the back side. Now, once again, remember, these are not structural headers in a sense. Our strength is more in and out, wind loadings, but the truss on the end wall is actually carrying all of the weight. So this is more or less to give it some strength, like I said, for wind loading, and then also to hang all this door springs and whatnot. Now this column here I just went ahead and made up. See, what happened was the customer added that door, that garage door way down at the other end. He added that last minute, which meant I used a post for that jam down there that I didn't figure. And I left this one out because end post columns are not that big of a deal. They're not that structural. I'll see builders do a 12-foot span on an end wall all the time. I'm not a fan of it, so I still wanted a post at 8 foot. Also, it'll tie into our 8-foot wind tie that goes from end to end. So I went ahead and made this one up, some 3-ply 2x8 laminates. I just did it, nailed it up with some 20-penny ring shanks. Got quite a few in there. It ain't going nowhere. It'll all get held together by inside and outside wall girts too. So, yeah, gonna stand this one up by hand, I think.
I can't do that because I just want to fold backwards. I got the pole. Now listen, come up here and pull. Okay, there you go. There you go. You need me down there? You want to come help? I'll help, bro. Don't worry, Joe. I'll help you. I'm going all right. I'll get the sled. You help your sister over there. Yes, Mom. Whatever, Grandma.
I just love it. Hopefully you guys can see through the making fun or poking fun or giving each other a hard time. That's actually us enjoying what we do, having a good time, and just, you know, we're friends above and beyond the job site, and making it enjoyable, giving each other a hard time. That's just part of friendship. I think we all know that, so don't take any of the back and forth as malicious or anything else. It's really just about having fun on the job site. You know, I get the occasional question, why are you guys hand driving nails? People are always asking, use a nail gun. You know, we've got that monster jumbo nailer from Fasco. We've got structural GRK screws we could be using. To be honest, there's really no good answer other than post frame is commonly fastened with like 20-penny ring shank nails, and it's quite enjoyable just to hand drive some nails. And a lot of times, in most cases, it's just more efficient. Instead of going and getting a drill, going and getting an air hose, I've got a pocket full of 20 pennies and I enjoy hand driving them. So just go up the wall and you know, kind of like that, being a little kid climbing up in a tree. That's kind of what it feels like. It's definitely more safe, in my opinion, than climbing a ladder to go up the wall. I know a scissor lift is going to be the ultimate, but swinging a hammer out of a scissor lift is not that comfortable, to be honest. And I know that might not make sense, but just with the rail location, you can never really have good leverage to get a good hard swing. So a lot of times, if it's just me, I'm just going to run up the wall real quick and be a kid again climbing a tree. So now that I've got this post installed, it's time to get this walk door, which was the main goal of my day or my morning. And it's a little bit different. Usually we come from the grade up and put our measurements so that we can determine the height of the door. But being on a foundation wall that is not exactly where we want it, we have to actually use the post that we have determined with our story pole at the beginning when we marked all these brackets with lasers. We'll use that and we'll start at the top with the header and work our way down. So a little bit backwards, but probably the most efficient way for us to do it and still be accurate. Now with leveling up these door jambs, I've been using the LAX 300G. This is a green laser from Stabila, and I had a guy actually tell me on my last video series that you got to be careful because as this laser beam projects onto your wall, if it's not perpendicular exactly to the wall and your girts are in and out, it could be inconsistent, and I take that very seriously, and I think that's a great point that he made. However, I think if I eyeball it perpendicular as close as possible, the amount of change from this distance should be so minute in my rough opening. And then I've always got my 8-foot Stabilo right next to it that I can double check things, but just for the ease of setup, being able to just, being able to just turn this on, kind of line it up. Let's see. Okay, just making sure it was working. And just line it up with, it's very hard to see in the dark. Let me see if I can get a shadow. Oh, there it is. And just line it up with the edge of this concrete. And I'm lining up with the edge of my concrete because the concrete guys, this was supposed to be 43 and a quarter, and it's just shy of that. So this is my jam side for the hinges. I'm gonna make sure my frame is as tight against this side of the concrete knockout as possible. I'll level this one up plumb it up, and then we'll go to this side, and it kind of is what it is. It's still big enough for my rough opening. It's just not the exact size that the spec is, but it'll work just fine. I better do this while the clouds just went away. Kind of see this, line it up, and I'll just run my jam board right on that line. Now let me just make sure that I'm clear. The concrete guys did a phenomenal job on this building. I think it was about an 1/8 inch smaller than I wanted. Nothing detrimental or nothing game changing. Here's a little quick tip. If you see what I'm doing there, I've got a screw on the top header, and I'm using my hammer to leverage the board coming up, the door jamb, to be exactly where I want it. And in post frame, we're always having to use little tips and tricks to find leverage to get our material exactly where we want it. Otherwise, it's never going to line up because lumber is not perfect. Once I've determined that my hinge side jamb is perfectly plumb, I'm just going to go ahead and measure over to find where the other one is going to be installed. Now here's a little tip and trick as well. When you're cutting lumber out of a doorway like so, and it's got pressure on it, you're always going to have better luck cutting from the top down, and that is because at the very last second you're going to get through the material, and instead of the weight of the board pinching your blade, it's going to be a lot easier. So I always try to cut from the top down. It's not always the most comfortable, but it does make it a lot easier to not have your board pinch and then lock up your saw blade like it did right there, because I let the board drop into my saw blade. Now you will see me use many different circular saws. I've got a bunch of them, but I always go back to my 6.5 inch Milwaukee cordless fuel. It is just the right weight, the right balance. It's a left blade, and until these manufacturers start producing more left blades, I just always go back to the Milwaukee. Something about it, it just feels right. Now what I'm doing here is, there's no concrete yet, right? So that's not going to be poured until we're done, which means I don't have a place to set my door onto. So what I do is I just go ahead and cut a scrap piece of lumber. I'm going to fasten it to the bottom of where my door jambs are. That way I've got something to secure and set the walk door on temporarily, and then when the concrete guys come to pour the floor, they'll just go ahead and pull out these couple toe-nailed screws and pour right through and underneath the door, locking it in and sealing it up nice. But it's kind of a pain when you have a foundation wall with walk doors. They're heavy steel doors, so I found this to be the best method in order to do that before the concrete is done, which keeps me moving and gets the job done quicker. But now that this task is done, let's get on to garage door trims. So with garage door jamb trims, we have gone ahead and made this custom trim. And I say custom, but it's actually a stock trim. It's a stock trim that we turned two trims into one piece. So instead of having a L flashing coming this way and then our overhead door jamb flashing coming this way, we made it into one piece. It does make it a lot more difficult because if you're off, you see it, and if it's on, it looks that good. That is two pieces, by the way. There's another joint down there. I'll show you when I go down. But all we do is we put a piece of 2x2 furring here on the door jamb, and that gives it some rigidity behind this trim. And then we just do a simple bend over, so 1.5 inch bend down. We do that on the side jamb piece. One of the nice things we have our metal sales manufacturer do is put this plastic on the really larger pieces of flat metal. That way we can reduce the amounts of scuffs, scratches, all that good stuff. Over here I'll show you this detail. So once we've got our 1.5 inch bend up underneath, we come over, and this is a 3.5 inch measurement, and we do this honestly just for scale. Once we run our steel, it's going to get tucked up underneath this trim. There'll be a piece of J channel on top, a piece of J channel in here, just like that one there. That'll continue up. But then the water will be able to come out and get away from this jamb. We don't want any water getting back in here, or at least minimizing it to, you know, hopefully nothing. Now, when we've got these larger doors that have more than one piece of trim, it's very important. So this is the next piece, and I've notched it out. Now, it's not important enough just to notch out this leg, but you've got to notch just slightly past it, okay? And the reason we do that is because these dimensions are the same, or they should be the same on both ends, which means when you overlap them, you either have to stretch one out or bunch one up. So by doing this, this is a little bit of a relief cut. It should aid in that, so we can get that really nice trim overlap. It's always good to put some good old silicone on these joints just to keep any water from working its way around and down. I always like to leave this plastic on kind of as long as possible. See, now if you look at those laps, by doing that relief cut, it's really going to help. I'll tap a nail here first. Stretch. Now we're just going to tack these because later on when we put our finished white coil stock up here for the garage door, we'll pull those out and tuck it. But take a look at this joint. It is a thing of beauty, Greg. And it ain't easy to get that. One thing we'll do here is we'll tack a nail. That looks good from a foot away, let alone from 16 foot down at the top. Dude, that does look nice. So when making your last piece here, it's always good to measure
See, this one we're 41 3/4 on the front side. Being 12 inches deep, there can always be a little bit of inconsistency. So I like to always check. This one I'm 41 7/8, so we gotta just cut this a little bit different front to back. So the back side, what'd I say?
41 7/8.
Yeah. 41 7/8. And up here we're gonna be 41 3/4. Now that's just my cutout. So then I gotta add 3.5. I know all you guys are like, imperial measurements suck. I don't know, they're easy for us. 45 1/4. Now this is where, Greg, I need a nice straight edge. Bigger than a 7-inch square. I always like to cut with greens toward here for whatever reason. Random cut. Cut this off.
I'm sure there's going to be a couple people that comment down below, hey, where's the Martinez square? And I don't have it yet. So this in the timeline is just before I had gotten it from Mark. So still using my old cheap one.
Plastic on to prevent this from getting scratched when we're doing all this. It's like the white glove treatment. What I always do is, you see how the steel has a little roll to it? Don't cut too high on this side. Always try to cut on this side of that roll, and I'll show you why when I put the piece of trim up. Okay. Now, I'm just gonna eyeball because I think I'm gonna be really close. Let's see, this is 1.5 inches. Yeah, I wanted that at 3/4. I think I'm pretty darn good. And I'm just gonna connect these dots, but not going all the way to the point. I wanna leave just a little bit of this material here. And I'll show you. Go ahead and dry fit this before I put silicone on it and show you. Good on my notch. See this right here? I leave this because this is going to cover any of this little stuff right here. I don't know if you can see that in there, but you kind of see all that. By leaving this a little bit long, if I would have cut it directly to this point, you have a chance of seeing some of that cut right there. So by doing it like that, it looks like from the ground you've still got a nice miter, but it's covering up the potential of seeing that. So just a little tip, just the tip though. Now another little tip I'll share is that whichever is your most common viewpoint, so for us, customer's house is right over here. They're gonna usually be coming from that area. We're gonna always start our steel, our trims, everything furthest away and work towards that visible point. And that is so that these seams, you almost never see them if you're looking at them over top. So always try to make sure that you line up your trim so that nobody sees them. I don't know about you guys, but I think that is a pretty darn clean look. And that's kind of the evolution of us as builders. It's not how we started out, but through trial and error, kind of constantly wanting to get better, right, Greg?
Yep.
We still got things to work on though. Probably should be house wrapping these gables.